Alright guys, before we get into this video, be sure to check out our Instagram, which is
Beasley's React.
Beasley's React on Instagram. What we're going to be putting on there? Just quickly.
Just updates, daily updates, cooking, stories.
Cooking stuff coming soon.
Basically all the things that we do that we don't post straight away will be on our Instagram stories and posts and things before they're on YouTube.
Definitely. So link will be in the description. This intro is super long, by the way, so I will put a timestamp on the screen now if you guys want to skip the intro. I wouldn't skip it if I was you, because we learned some new stuff in there.
Yeah, I'm really funny, so.
Millie's also really funny, but we learned some new stuff in there. It's about 3 or 4 minutes long, extra with this now. So if you want to skip it, the timestamp is here. If you don't, enjoy the video. Have a fantastic day, guys, and we'll see you in the next one. Peace. What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today's reaction video is the United States versus the world. We've checked out stuff like Britain versus the US, haven't we?
Yeah.
Can the US defend an invasion of the homeland and stuff like that? What do you reckon to the USA versus the world?
I don't know about this one. I've been quite confident with the other ones, like that the US would
be able to do it.
But the world's a big place.
It's different gravy. The world is different gravy.
Against Britain, okay.
Yeah, we're tiny.
It is what it is. Invading their homeland is a bit different because
they're coming onto your turf. You've got everyone with guns and stuff like that.
You're going out into the whole rest of the world against you.
It's a lot of people. It's a lot of people. You may be shocked. You may not be in this reaction. Obviously, you guys know I have. Well, actually, some of you guys may not know. I have checked this out. I think it was about 9 or 8 months ago.
Okay.
So I know the result of this. No spoilers.
Trying to read you.
Yeah, no spoilers from me. I've kept it quiet, and I haven't actually told you at any time. I like to keep these quiet and like to leave these reactions to be a surprise for you.
I do have a feeling that it's going to be like, it's quite close. Like, I don't think it's going to be like one way more than the other. Like,
I don't know. Well,
that's what I think. I think it's going to be a close one.
Although, like, we spoke about how deadly the US are and how much military power they have.
Yeah, but the US so much, and then think about the world.
Yeah.
Right. There's small places. England's part of the rest of the world. Yeah.
Yeah, but think there's China, over 1 billion people. There's India, over 1 billion people. Where you look at the United States, only 345 million people.
America?
Population-wise, I don't want to sound like an idiot. I'm pretty sure.
Which one's China?
Well,
yeah, it is. Look, that's only just China there, that little guy.
What?
That little one's just China.
China population. I don't think I got this wrong. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, 1.4 billion. There we go.
1.4 billion?
Okay, I knew that.
What's the US?
There you go. United States, 329 million people. I knew. Right. You almost made me feel like such an idiot because I said billion and you made me doubt myself.
You're not an idiot. I'm an idiot. I just needed.
I weren't gonna say it. I'm only messing. Right.
I've only ever been nice to you.
So now you know that.
Okay, that makes no difference because
you still don't know.
No, because it's about the equipment. It's not the people.
Yeah.
It's the people behind it. It's the equipment, isn't it?
Yeah. Definitely.
Because I'm counted in the rest of the world and I'm not doing anything. So I'm not getting it. I'm just going to sit there, drink my tea, get on with life.
Right.
So
let's get on with it anyway. We'll see if you're going to be shocked or not. Who knows? I just wanted to highlight the population thing because I didn't know if you knew how brutal the difference in population is.
Didn't have a clue.
You're talking 2 countries there, which is 2.7 billion compared to 342. I mean,
that's opened up a whole loop. I've got a load of questions to ask you afterwards.
Maybe we'll do some reactions on that, or maybe
I don't know. I thought China was like small population because of like all the one-child policy and all that.
No, that's why they do the one-child policy, because they've got so many. They're trying to like limit it.
Oh God, I need to go back to school.
Let's get straight into it, guys. If you guys want to see more content, yeah, I think this intro has been about 3 or 4 minutes. Smash the like button if you want to see more of it. Smash the subscribe button as well. And we're gonna have a bit of a lesson here. I think a reaction we definitely need to do because obviously we've seen the level of intelligence we have on show here. I'm not saying what level it is. You guys can make your own mind up on that. Oh, you definitely do. But you just, if you don't know it, you don't know it. If you know it, you know it.
History in school.
Exactly. So but what I was trying to get at, because this intro has been so long.
I'm really chatty tonight.
History of the entire world is a really good reaction what will come, and that'll teach you a lot. It taught me a lot as well. So if you guys want to see that, and that's why I kind of brought the intelligence thing into it, let us know in the comments. Right,
confused.
Longest intro ever. I do apologise. Let's get straight into it. The United States versus the world. What we got?
A superpower is defined as a state with the ability to exert influence or project power on a global scale, and if needed, in more than one region of the globe at a time. The United States, currently the world's sole superpower, fits this description, with an official military doctrine that states its military forces must be ready and capable to fight 2 major theater wars simultaneously, a capability no other nation on Earth can even approach. But what would happen if the United States found itself in a war against the entire rest of the world? How would that war potentially play out? The rules of this war game will be as follows. No nuclear weapons allowed, and war will be simulated to have broken out after weeks of preamble. As in a surprise attack, the United States with its forces spread around the world would likely lose its non-homeland forces entirely, but not before delivering crippling blows to most of the world's major powers and knocking them out of the conflict early. The US's main opposition would be in the form of a European coalition to include Russia and a China-India alliance. The rest of the world's contribution would be mostly in material supplies or financial backing, as while even nations like Japan boast a formidable military capability, they mostly lack the ability to actually deploy that power outside of their own borders. In fact, that would be the biggest hurdle to any global offensive against the United States. With historical military preparations focused on conflicts such as NATO versus Russia or China versus India, most militaries around the world lack the ability to transport military hardware across the oceans in a meaningful quantity, making a decisive assault against the US homeland impossible. Meanwhile, due to its commitments to fighting wars well outside its own borders for the last 80 years, the United States operates the world's largest air and naval transport fleets that number in the hundreds of ships and aircraft, more than most modern nations combined. This lack of mobility will prove to be a major weakness for the global alliance and severely hinder their ability to respond to US actions. Today, the United States operates its forces in every geographic area of the world and has split its command structure into 9 combatant commands, 6 responsible for global geographic areas of responsibility. In the weeks leading up to the outbreak of war, the United States would likely pull its forces out of Europe and non-American bases in the Pacific, disbanding its European, African, and Southern commands. Pacific Command, Northern Command, and Central Command would absorb these forces. Battlefield 1, Middle East. US Central Command would receive an influx of former European assets, with the US bolstering its forces in the Middle East and bases in Afghanistan and Iraq with one goal: destroying the major oil refineries and distribution centers while denying access to the sea lanes that transport oil from the region. 81% of the world's oil reserves are located in OPEC countries, and over 60% of the world's oil passes through the Arabian Sea alone.
I don't actually know. I know what he's getting to. He's getting to your Dubai's, Abu Dhabi and places like that. What sells all the oil, which they are really rich countries just because that is where all the oil is.
Yeah.
OPEC? I don't actually know what that stands for. It's probably very stupid of me not to know that.
Don't know. It may be like a US term for countries. I don't know.
I mean, it's an abbreviation, I'm guessing, and it is a certain part of the world. Yeah. It will be something we've probably heard of. I just genuinely can't think of it at the moment. So let us know in the comments.
Maybe stands for oil and C for country. So
potentially. Let us know in the comments. We'd seriously appreciate that. And yeah, but it's a lot of number for them countries around there. See. And again, oil makes the world tick as well.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Oil is used for so many things around the world. You need it. You think, you can't get your petrol and stuff like that, kind of very similar things. Petrol prices rise.
Yeah.
Starts costing people a fortune, so that it is very much needed. So it potentially could be a very good thing to dominate, if that makes sense. Yeah.
The US's strategic goals would be simple. Shut off the global oil tap. With the world's 12th largest oil reserves, the United States could easily supply itself while denying the rest of the world access to vital Middle East oil. Europe, which would represent the United States' most formidable adversary, relies on Middle East oil for 40 to 50% of its total annual use, meaning an American stranglehold on the region would cripple any European war effort as reserves run out and their economies begin to collapse. China would face a similar problem, as 50% of its total oil imports all come from the Middle East, making the region the first front in our war. At the outbreak of war, the United States would first strike at oil production and distribution facilities across the Middle East, via carrier-based strike aircraft backed up by former European theater aircraft, now based off American bases in Iraq and Afghanistan. With the world's largest air tanker fleet and flanking the all-important Persian Gulf from both Iraq and Afghanistan, American aircraft could penetrate deep into Middle East territory with impunity, striking at targets from the Straits of Hormuz all the way to the Suez Canal itself. Though regional forces would be able to offer some initial resistance, most operate outdated Soviet-era or non-modern American-built aircraft, with the exception of current US allies such as Saudi Arabia, who would be able to field modern variant F-15s, Typhoon Eurofighters, and Italian-British Tornado multi-role strike aircraft in small numbers.
I don't want to pause it too much. I'm going a little bit off topic. Obviously, we're kind of starting to see the technology the US have in terms of the numbers. But you mentioned the Suez Canal. I may have said that completely wrong. I do apologise. Do you know much about that?
No.
I know it is very crucial. It may be here. I don't know its exact location. I think it is here. But it literally is just a little canal straight through, but it means you don't have to go all the way around, and it saves like weeks.
Oh, okay.
And like a tanker got like stuck in it a few months back, and it literally just everything was late, things delayed.
Wow.
It's such an important kind of thing, that canal. So if you guys want us to check more out about that, I think we definitely should. And I did think you wouldn't know too much about it.
Yeah, I don't know.
And I know about it. I just don't know the history behind it and why it is so important.
Yeah.
I just know there's literally this one straight tunnel. Like, well, not tunnel.
Everyone's in and out.
Straight through. The boats go through, and it basically cuts like maybe even a month. I may be wrong, but a month off the shipping and stuff like that. So when that gets blocked or someone stops it, it's a nightmare. It's an absolute nightmare. So let us know if you want to check that out. That was a bit of a tangent, though.
European support, however, the air war would go very poorly for Middle East powers for several reasons. Firstly, lacking a joint unified command, each nation would be unable to coordinate its air assets with its neighbors, resulting in confusion and low sortie rates. Most Middle East powers also field very few electronic warfare or early warning and control aircraft. Turkey, Saudi Arabia, and Israel would represent the most formidable threats to American air power, yet neither nation fields dedicated electronic attack aircraft, while the US is equipped with over 200, mostly F-35 variants and EA-18G Growlers. Without adequate numbers of AWACS and electronic warfare assets, Middle East powers would be unable to coordinate the large amounts of sorties needed to counter US air power, and they'd find their aircraft and ground-based air defenses actively jammed or spoofed by American EW assets. In the opening days of the Middle East War, the US would likely see moderate casualties among its air forces, as it would be mostly operating against obsolete aircraft and disorganized or inexperienced air forces. The greatest threat to US craft would come from ground-based air defenses, which range in obsoletism, yet remain a formidable obstacle to US air power. With a concentration of American power in the region, it's a foregone conclusion that Middle East powers would have begun to move their air defenses to protect vital oil shipping routes and manufacturing/distribution centers. Yet Desert Storm proved how effective the United States can be at dismantling a nation's air defense network, and most nations in the region have invested little into modernizing their defense infrastructures in the years since. The US would suffer most of its losses to its fourth-generation aircraft such as its F-15, F-16, and F-18s, while its fifth-generation F-35s and F-22s would prove much more difficult to contend with. With an inventory of 385 active F-35s, over 1,800 more on order, and 197 F-22s, the US retains the only operational fifth-generation air fleets, with current allies fielding a token force of F-35s purchased from America, and the Russians and Chinese still not fielding combat-ready fifth-generation aircraft. Despite its technological and operational superiority, however, sheer numbers would present a threat to American forces. So instead of seizing key oil production or distribution facilities, the US would instead focus its efforts on keeping those facilities and trade route choke points shut down while defending against attacks on its air bases. A single sunk supertanker could block the Suez Canal for weeks, shutting down one of the most important oil trade routes in the world, while constant harassment by American air power would make the Straits of Hormuz impassable. With few major naval threats in the Pacific, American Pacific naval forces would be split between containing China and bolstering U.S. Central Command forces in establishing a blockade of trade routes across the Pacific and Indian Oceans. With 20 carriers, 11 of which are supercarriers, more than the rest of the world combined, a blockade of the Indian and Pacific Oceans would be easily achieved. With a staggering 80% of global oil trade passing through the Indian and Pacific Oceans, the rest of the world would be forced to abandon any plans to attack the US homeland and first try to dislodge the Americans from the Middle East. Yet they would be doing so while operating on a ticking clock as domestic oil reserves begin running dry. In a prolonged conflict, immediate development of oil reserves in Russia would begin, though with only 80 billion barrels of proven reserves versus over 800 billion in the Middle East, it would be imperative for the global coalition to dislodge the US from the region or face eventual oil starvation and defeat. Europe would be faced with the difficult decision of committing the majority of its air and naval power to a Middle East campaign, yet with an American navy larger than the next 8 navies in the world combined, they would be doing so at the risk of leaving their coasts vulnerable to harassment from American attack submarines and carrier strike groups. American attack submarines in particular would prove to be an overwhelming force, with 55 nuclear attack subs alone. Europe, to include Russia, fields nearly 100 submarines, yet only about a third of those are nuclear powered and range from 10 to 25 years behind US subs in tech. Lacking in major transport capabilities and the ability to adequately protect either their sea lanes or any attempts to move troops by sea, the global coalition would be extremely hard-pressed to dislodge the US from the Middle East. While an event
I do find it mental. Out of a whole world, you're talking, it's quite a big piece of area of the Middle East. But in context, it's not much. Basically, it is the main threat.
Yeah, I know. It's
like a little bit of strategy and war can just... Because everyone's now suddenly like, whoa, we need that little piece... Well, not little piece, you know what I mean, in context.
Yeah.
We need that land there, or we're going to be screwed.
That's crazy.
And then they're throwing everything at it, potentially leaving your homeland at risk. So by the time you potentially get it back, you've been overtaken everywhere else. Just like, it's... I never realised it as well when I first watched it, it's just how much strategy actually plays a part. It's not just always all guns blazing, stuff like that. One little strategy thing can just easily win it for you. It's absolutely mental.
Yeah, I'm starting to form my opinion.
So, a little bit shocked or not?
I'm shocked.
Yeah? I mean, there's a long way to go. There's another 9 minutes on this video. It may completely turn. The world may have some tricks up their sleeve. We'll see.
Eventual overwhelming of US ground forces would be possible. It would take weeks of buildup and slow moving of forces via ground routes to avoid American submarines. Victory in the Middle East would be possible for the global coalition, but would only come at great expense of dwindling oil reserves, and any attempts to reopen the Middle East trade routes would certainly fail, as the US would concentrate its nuclear attack subs and carrier battle groups in the region. The coalition would be forced to rely on existing land-based pipelines, though these would not be enough to sustain the world economy, and the United States would certainly commit its stealthy B-2 bombers to the destruction of these pipelines and any attempts at building new ones. In short, a land victory would be probable for the global coalition, but without the ability to challenge the US Navy, global trade routes would be permanently shut down, effectively crippling the economies of coalition nations and the war effort. Battlefield 2, West Pacific. The West Pacific and South China Sea is the most economically important waterway in the world, with a full 1/3 of all global trade passing through the area, or about $5.3 trillion. China, South Korea, and Japan would especially have a vested interest in keeping these sea lanes open, yet none of those nations field a true blue water or deep ocean navy. In a global war, the United States would invest the majority of its expeditionary firepower in the West Pacific, having little to fear from an Atlantic incursion by European powers due to their lack of major military transport capability and navies designed for decades to engage Russian ships in literal combat rather than blue water operations. Japan would pose a significant challenge for US forces due to its very modern and robust self-defense forces, yet the island nation could be largely ignored due to Japan's lack of air tankers, limiting the range of its strike aircraft and 70-year self-defense military doctrine, which saw the nation only recently begin to build an expeditionary capability. With 155 F-15s making up the bulk of Japan's air force and only a combat range of 790 miles, it is doubtful the island nation would risk its 5 operational airborne refueling tankers to attempt offensive operations against the US Navy and its over 1,000 fighter aircraft, instead holding its air forces in reserve in case of an American attack on the homeland. The US's first goal in the region would be to cut off all trade routes passing through the South China Sea. China would represent the US's biggest global adversary, yet like every other global power, to include Russia, it too lacks the navy and the transport capability to actually threaten the US homeland. In order to deny the nation the opportunity to build this capability, the US would immediately move to cut off Chinese trade through the South China Sea, something China would be particularly vulnerable to as over 60% of its trade is delivered by sea. Though China lacks a navy formidable enough to threaten US Pacific forces, it more than makes up for this shortcoming with its ballistic missile forces. Its DF-26 ballistic missiles each have a range of 3,000 to 4,000 kilometers and would threaten any US base or ship as far out as Guam. At the outbreak of war, China would immediately launch a withering missile strike against American facilities on Guam. While Guam would be defended by THAAD, or Terminal High Altitude Area Defense Anti-Missile Systems, Aegis-equipped destroyers, and Patriot missile batteries, China would rely on heavy saturation strikes and overwhelm American missile defense systems, decimating the majority of American ground targets on the small island and rendering it inoperative as a military forward staging area for weeks. This would force America to rely on its naval assets in the region, which would be the secondary targets of China's opening barrage. Though long touted as carrier killers, China's DF-26 and DF-21 ballistic missiles each rely on a very long and complex kill chain, or chain of military assets required to recon a target, track it, and guide a missile to it. In order to accomplish this, China operates 30 Yaogan tracking and reconnaissance satellites grouped into constellations that, working together, would provide China 16 opportunities per 24-hour period to accurately target a US Navy vessel to within 10 kilometers anywhere in the Pacific. The US would certainly seek to counter this capability with deployment of its anti-satellite weapon systems, of which it remains extremely secretive about. It is impossible to infer just how effective US anti-sat weapons truly are due to a lack of information, but it is known that in the early 2000s, the US Air Force successfully tested a deployment of mini-sats designed to kill or hijack enemy satellites, and in 2008, the US successfully targeted and destroyed a defunct satellite with an SM-3 missile launched from the USS Lake Erie in the Pacific. With every US destroyer and cruiser able to carry the SM-3, this could potentially pose a serious threat to Chinese space assets and degrade the capabilities of their ballistic missile forces. In a push...
You think, yeah, we could have 16 chances a day to hit, which is just chances, it doesn't mean it's definitely going to do it, and then suddenly they're just wiped out. You're like, we're a bit screwed here. Remember though, like I always say, I've refrained from saying it now.
We're friends.
We're friends. Wow.
In my head the whole time I've been thinking it.
It's a good job
we're friends.
Not only friends, a lot of you guys say we're brothers, we're sisters and cousins.
Not us two.
Oh yeah, we're not. We meant we are with you guys.
Yeah.
Is what we meant. Let's not go weird. That's a bit weird. That's a bit mad. I was talking about you guys. We are brothers, sisters and cousins. So, if this ever does kick off, we need to dig out some fake American passports and you guys need to vouch for us.
I think we'll just have to be really careful and plan it before and just get ourselves over there.
Well, I don't think there'd be a bit of a warning it's going to happen. I mean, it'll just be like, boom, it's happened. Maybe there'll be a warning. But if there is a warning, I guess it's kind of like everyone knows it's going to happen then, and will they let you in if there's a warning?
But will they let you in the middle of it?
I don't know. But some of these legends will... Exactly, that's what I mean. Some of these legends will hook us up. I know you will. It's not looking good for the rest of the world, including us. And as you can see, Britain has hardly been mentioned in this as well.
Yeah, I think Britain's very, very minute when it comes to this.
You can see just how insignificant we are in terms of military and stuff like that nowadays.
I mean, look, it's us British people. I'm not going to join in.
Yeah, you may have to. Maybe one day. I doubt it will. You probably get scared. I might get forced to do it. But we're American, so we'll get in the American one. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Into the Pacific, however, the US would still suffer heavy casualties among its fleet due to Chinese long-range missile strikes. It's probable then that while it works to destroy Chinese space assets from afar, America would instead send its nuclear attack submarine fleet to blockade Chinese waters. China operates about 60 submarines, Yet for years, those subs did not go on patrols or even leave port as they were often sidelined by maintenance issues. Only as recently as 2011 did Chinese subs actually begin to leave port, giving US subs the opportunity to tail them and discover that Chinese submarines were surprisingly easy to find and track due to their noisy nature. Defense experts estimated that Chinese sub technology was 10 years behind Russia and about 20 years behind the US. The US, meanwhile, operates 55 nuclear attack submarines, with most of these being of the modern Virginia class. Armed with torpedoes and a complement of Tomahawk cruise missiles, Virginia attack subs could easily threaten Chinese surface and subsurface vessels and join its Ohio-class ballistic missile submarines in cruise missile attacks against Chinese inland industrial and military installations. While in recent years, China has invested heavily into improving its anti-submarine warfare capabilities, it is still critically behind even regional powers such as South Korea and Japan, meaning that in the end, there is likely little China could do to stop US attack subs. Though it could likely keep American carrier battle groups out of the South China Sea for the first week or two of the war, China would be helpless to prevent a naval blockade by US attack subs. India, also reliant on South Pacific trade routes, would certainly dispatch its naval forces to attempt to break a US blockade, but would face the same issues in challenging US subs that China would. Having only 15 active submarines, and also lacking in modern anti-submarine warfare capabilities, the Indian Navy would quickly find itself overpowered by American attack subs. Employing a combination of its submarine and anti-satellite assets, the US would likely break through the Chinese ballistic missile shield within 30 days and enact a complete blockade of the South Pacific, strangling regional powers economically. With a blockade of Middle East oil exports, the global war would then become a war of attrition, with the US starving out the world's major powers while able to sustain itself off its own domestic oil reserves. Having little to fear from a European transatlantic offensive due to Europe's lack of major military transport capabilities, American forces would be free to initiate ground offensives against Canada and Venezuela in order to seize its oil reserves as well. Ultimately, the US Navy, the largest and best equipped in the world, would be the deciding factor in a global war. With such overwhelming firepower superiority, the United States would be able to fight defensively and without launching any major ground offensives outside of North America. Fielding a larger fleet than the next 8 navies combined, the US Navy, backed by the US Coast Guard, could easily defend the Atlantic sea lanes from any European incursion, while enacting blockades of major oil shipping routes through the Persian Gulf and Indian and Pacific Oceans. While the world would eventually be able to muster a large enough force to threaten the US, current military capabilities across the globe would be insufficient to prevent these naval blockades and would require years of buildup and expansion of navies from every modern nation. With the majority of global oil trade shut off by naval blockade, however, European and Asian economies would quickly shrink or outright collapse, making such a buildup improbable and ensuring an eventual US victory. Yet that victory would come at a titanic cost to even the US's own economy, and in the end, the entire global economy would likely shrink to levels not seen since the end of the Second World War. So, how do you think this scenario would have played out? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Also, be sure to check out our other video called
Check out their video, the link will be in the description about it. Absolutely mental. I do want to say as well, this video is a few years old, so let us know if it is as simple, if anything's developed in the past couple of years. I know there's a few things in China, potentially technology getting better as well, but obviously the US is still improving every day as well. So let us know in the comments your opinions on that. Let us know if you think it will go a different way. And yeah, I mean, it seems pretty pointless because, like I said, at the end, everyone's going to be hit. But if the US did want to take over the world, it seems quite easy for them.
Yeah, all I'm going to say is that I've been nice to America. I ain't said nothing bad, ever.
And you never will.
I never will.
Yeah, it's pretty much as simple as that. If they wanted to, they could dominate the world. Yeah. And they've always got that threat there. At the moment, as things stand, I imagine it's going to stay that way for a while. Let us know in the comments. And did you enjoy that one?
Yeah, it was good. Yeah, I learned a lot.
Definitely. Like, even from the start when we learned about the populations.
This is things I just didn't learn at school.
I'm the exact same doing, like, when I was doing these videos. It opens up a whole new world when you start talking about different areas and stuff like that, doesn't it? And which is why I love doing these reactions, because not only we've sat down to do a military who could conquer who, you've learnt about the populations, we've learnt a bit more hopefully going to learn about the Suez Canal as well, if you guys want to check that out, because that is such a fundamental thing, from what I've heard at least. So I'd definitely be keen to check that out. Let us know in the comments, guys. If you've enjoyed this, smash the like button, smash that subscribe button as well, you absolute legends, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.